Hey, I'm Dan from Soundscape, and today we're going to be looking at a project that I just finished up. It's a Toyota 4Runner. This particular vehicle already has a high-end system in it. It was installed several years ago by a reputable shop. The client just really wanted to upgrade and refresh the system. This presents a particular challenge because when it's a stock system, whether it's Bose, Bang & Olufsen, or Harman Kardon or something like that, I know I have the recipe to surpass those systems pretty easily. But when it comes to a system that's already close to what I would design for somebody, I have to design a system that's going to outperform or be qualitatively better than the last one. And talking to the client, he really just wanted a refresh, just really wanted to try something new. And the only qualitative note that he had was he wanted a little bit more mid-bass. So that's what we were shooting for. Now, the previous system had an Alpine radio that went to an Audison Bit 1, then to 3 Moscone AS amplifiers, 3-way hybrid audio components up front, and an Illusion subwoofer in the back. I didn't want to just swap everything just for the sake of doing it, so I tried to make as meaningful an increase in various different places as I could without breaking the budget. From a system design standpoint, I know that the radio is not going to increase the sound quality at all, so I convinced them to keep that the same. We changed out the processor, the amplifiers, and the mid-bass up front. The first thing I did was remove the aftermarket system. I pulled the board that the amps were mounted on because I wanted to maintain the same footprint that he had originally. I took the board out and marked all the mounting holes so that I could use the same mounting points that were done before. I used an aluminum plastic composite in order to laminate the original board. It gives me new places to drill holes into. The processor we chose for this is the Helix DSP Ultra S. It's the latest and greatest. Though the Audison is the old school original, this DSP really shows the improvements that have happened in the last 20 years. Typically, I upgrade these Helix DSPs with their HEC Bluetooth pieces. It's a really good high-res Bluetooth connection that goes directly from your phone to the processor, which means it's skipping the factory step. And it has a really handy feature where as soon as you start playing audio from your phone, it'll switch over from the radio to the Bluetooth, and then when you pause, it'll switch back again. Once the DSP was upgraded, then it was time to start lining up the amps for the amp rack. We're using 2 Helix C4s and a C1 for amplification. I played around with the positioning on the amps a couple of times to kind of see if I could come up with a different idea as far as the layout than what was originally there. But considering the larger size of these amps and the fact that the client liked the way that things were put together before, it didn't make sense to reinvent the wheel. It was a little tough to squeeze the DSP in with the amps on the amp rack, but I like to keep everything kind of together. Now, if you've seen any of my other builds, then you know how you typically wire up the amp rack outside the vehicle and then just place it in the vehicle. In this case, it just made a lot more sense to do it on the floor in there and just wire it up right there. I ran the out-gauge power wire underneath the vehicle because there just wasn't any room to run it inside. All right, now to the fun part. To directly address the mid-bass issue, I wanted to put hybrid audio L8 V2s in the kick panels. This is an upgrade from using the Claris mid-bass drivers that he had in the doors and moving everything just deeper into the kick panels, also getting a larger driver in. Using a Helix C4 bridged on those speakers, so they're getting a significant amount of power. We initially were talking about the kick panels. I didn't know exactly if I was going to be able to move all these harnesses out of the way because there's harnesses both on the driver and passenger sides. Luckily, they were all housed in a bracketing, plastic bracketing that goes there. And I was able to unplug them all, take it out of the bracketing, plug them all back in, and push them up into the dash. And it worked pretty well. After building a ring and mounting the speaker to it, I set it in there to see exactly how much foot room I was going to be taking up by building these kick panels. Luckily, there was no need to do any major cutting or anything because there was plenty of space. So I made a pattern using strips of wood and copied that into a 1/2-inch piece of acrylic. Now, every time I've done these L8 V2s in a kick panel type situation, it's always been amazing. Not only can you fit an 8.5-inch speaker in that space, but it also reduces as much rattle as possible. When you're pushing a lot of frequencies in the doors, you can get rattles even if you put a lot of sound deadening in there. I molded up the acrylic with some fiberglass, which matches it right to the body of the vehicle and gives me mounting points later on. The idea behind doing kick panels like this is to try to keep the speaker in an infinite baffle type setup instead of an enclosure. Once you start putting these speakers in an enclosure, you choke certain frequencies in there, and it's hard to get them to perform properly. I trimmed the original kick panels so that I could mold up to them. Now in total, there's going to be 2 layers of trim on top of the baffle in this, and each one of those layers is going to mold up, adds more strength to the entire assembly. Once the structural part is done, then I can start designing the grille. Now, I find that just making a round grille is kind of boring and it doesn't really add to the structural integrity of the grille. So I went with a little bit of a different shape with a plan to put an extra contour in the grille to add some extra strength to it. because I kept these kick panels so tight into the corners, I actually had to mold up a little extra around where the footrest was cut out. I upholstered the kick panels with black vinyl to match the vehicle. Put machine screw mounting points in the middle piece of the trim so that the outer piece of the trim would screw right into it. You'll notice I kept the speakers mounted in for this entire process, and that was just because I didn't want anything to shift or become misaligned. Once all that was assembled, I started working on the grills. I used the same templates that I had molded up the kick panels with to make the grills, but I had to reduce them by the thickness of the vinyl in order for them to pressure fit. Now, I just said before, I didn't really want to overcomplicate the amp rack. The original design was really good, so I just wanted to put my own little flair on it. The major difference I wanted to put in mind is I wanted to use press grills just like the front, so you could throw things on top and nothing would actually land on the amplifiers. These amps have glass fronts on them and they're really pretty, so why would you want to mess that up? In my infinite wisdom, I used 3/4 inch wood and attached that to 1/2 inch wood in order to make the top of the amp rack, which made it heavy as hell. So putting it on the router was kind of a pain in the ass. But there was absolutely no way I was going to take that monster chamfer bit and put it on a hand route. After some light hand sanding, there was time for carpet. So just like the kick panels, I cut the grill frames out of 1/2 inch acrylic. In both designs, the actual grill material is going to press in between the frame and the mount that it goes into. So even if there's pressure on the grill, it's not going to break through and smash the speaker or something. Once all the frames were made, I went ahead and started making the grill presses. The additional press through the middle of the grill is actually to make the entire thing more strong. If it's flat, you can dent it really easy. After the grills are pressed, then I just epoxy them into the frames. Spent some time calibrating the amplifiers. I typically do the highs and mids with a 5 dB overlap, and then the mid bass and the sub with a 10 dB overlap. Then there's tuning, which is a meditative kind of process at the end of a build. It reveals any errors you may have made in the installation process, and also lets you know if your design was good. It's not always smooth sailing, but this one went really well. Right away, I knew that we had nailed the mid-bass issue because on the RTA, it stuck right there and it was effortless. When it was all said and done and I sat and fine-tuned it with the client, he was really, really happy with the results, which is great because I knew this was going to be a challenge. Thanks again for watching me work. Not all of these videos are marathons. Got some short ones too. A little something for everybody. Do me a favor and share this with anybody you think might be interested in car audio. And if you live somewhere near Colorado Springs, come by and we'll get a project going. Thanks for watching. See you later.